Welcome, everybody, aboard the Tabletop Express. We are going to party like it's 1999 tonight.
Yay.
That's what we're doing because we're talking about games published before the year 2000, which up front actually was the initial challenge I ran into because I had thought of certain games and then I found multiple games that were like 2000. I'm like, oh, I could have sworn that was 1999.
Yeah.
So as we start this off, I first want to say to both of you, one, of course, welcome together because you've both been on the channel with me and now you're on the channel at the same time, which I think is fantastic.
Finally, two voices get to overpower one of Chris's.
I know, right? If I get interrupted again, man, forget it.
We realized before this all started, that I am in between. We're like town-wise, we're like one town over, then one town over, and I'm in the middle. So, I don't know what I'm saying with that, but that's what I'm saying. But let's start on one side here. Anthony, what one game-wise maybe just quite didn't make the cut? Was there anything that you thought that was going to be 2000 and then or 1999 or lower and then not quite?
No, because I initially, when I made the list, the first thing I did was went to my Board Game Geek collection and filtered by published year. So I didn't make any of those mistakes. And after that, it was sort of which one of these games do I like the most or would be most willing to play, like if someone asked me to play them right now. And I wasn't initially going to rank, but I saw that Ryan did, and so I kind of did that too because I thought, why not? But no, it was not super difficult. There is one honorable mention, which is Scrabble. It did not make the list, but it does have a big place in my life. I played it a whole heck of a lot. A childhood friend of mine, Eric, and I played this for countless hours and hours and hours, listening to Christmas music for way too long, and it just has a special place memory for that. And it still is in my collection. I have several copies, in fact, because I used to teach this to kids in my board game after school club in the before times. So there's that.
Nice.
Ryan, what about you?
So for putting together this list, I knew right away what games I wanted to really, really talk about and highlight. But it did get to a point where I couldn't fit everything that I wanted to fit in. So honorable mention, because last year during COVID, I did a lot of online gaming, and one of which, of course, was on the brand new site 18xx.games, where I was like, you know what? Let's try it. I've been in this hobby way too long, and I've yet to try an 18xx game. So honorable mention goes to the granddaddy of them all, which is 1830. Technically 1829 is earlier, but 1830 is the big one that actually kicked it all off and the one that a lot of them are modeled off of. So that one's not going to be on my list. Might be on someone else's. I don't know. I don't know if Anthony's a trained gamer now. Okay, well, you know.
I have never tried them. Ryan, maybe like a super quick explanation of what 18xx means, because it took me a long time to figure out what that was.
That's actually a great point, because I imagine a lot of people have never played that style game before.
Yeah, so 18xx games are trained games where you basically do two sort of things. It's a game kind of in both two phases. There's stock rounds where you're buying stocks in different train companies on this board, and the other aspect is laying down track and filling up the board with all these different trains. And what's really interesting about it is it's not like one player is it is this company and you're the other company. You buy stock in particular companies and can go in with other people. And you could, and also the company itself has its own treasury and you have your own treasury. And the way you win is have the most money in the end of your pocket, but you can't take money out of the company's treasury because that's embezzlement, that's illegal. But there's ways around it, and it's really manipulative. It's super, super player interaction. And the site handles a lot of the math. There's a lot of math involved, but the site handles a lot of the math. I still get to play an 18xx game in person. I'm hoping to do that once vaccines happen and I could just let's do it because I got 18 Chesapeake over here somewhere in the top top somewhere.
I will say this, Ryan, who's been joining us, not you, Ryan, but Ryan Clements has been joining us for a variety of videos, and he comes in and he did want to say his honorable mention is chess. So if anyone has ones they want to share during, we'll certainly highlight them. Chess is a great one to bring up. But with all that said, I think it's great to get right into these guys. We've got some good ones coming aboard, and I believe we're going to start with you, Ryan, with your number 5.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 5, I played for the first time last year as well. I played it on Tabletop Simulator. It's been a game that I've always been intimidated by because it's one of those weight of 4.6 out of 5 on Board Game Geek, and the rule book, I am not lying, is literally this thick. This is the latest rule book of the game. But my number 5 is Magic Realm. So Magic Realm is a game from the late 70s made by Richard Hamblin, who later on created Gunslinger, which is a Wild West game, and Merchants of Venus, which is like a giant sprawling sandbox space game. Magic Realm is kind of nuts. There's 18 different characters, which means 18 people can play it. I don't think that's wise though. And it's played over a month. And it has this sheet, if you see on the bottom right, where you actually write down your plan, and then you do your rolls, and hopefully it executes. And it's a game that always has memorable stories tied to it. I know exactly when I played Magic Realm and did my thing, I could tell you right away, oh, that last time I played, it was the White Knight, and I decided to go out, impress some locals. I did not impress them well. I went into the forest. I intimidated some bats. I got beat up by bats, and then I decided to leave and go home. That was my game of Magic Realm. But it is incredible. It's definitely, for nowadays, it has a lot of warts. I'm not gonna lie. If I want a game that achieves this feeling, I'm gonna go to Mage Knight, without a doubt, which is very similar in terms of evoking that feel of going out on a quest and going for particular adventures. But it's such an incredible game. So my copy is bound in rubber band and kind of falling apart, but it's great. I hope it gets reprinted. I hope it gets the justice that it deserves, because, man, it is a behemoth of a game, and I absolutely love gushing about Magic Realm.
So it's well loved. There's nothing, in my opinion, wrong with that one.
Yeah.
Anthony, what
Yes,
do
sir.
you got?
I have a couple questions for you before I go into
Go for it.
one. I want to know how to intimidate bats. That seems like a useful skill to have.
Oh,
What did
man.
you do?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't intimidate the bats. The bats, I was all ready to beat them, and I completely missed. I was too slow to actually attack them.
Gotcha.
Peckered at me.
I love that you remember this stuff.
Yeah,
I love that. That's, to me, like, as you're talking about a game, especially that goes back this far in terms of being published, and you can remember that kind of thing. I mean, that's why we're talking about these games, to me.
Yeah. And it's crazy. I mean, there's such a huge community. So that was the rule book. That's the version 3 of the rule book. And there's also a book that's just as long, which is like a tutorial with each character that goes over it. And it's just like a whole other world, Magic Realm.
Is the rule book bigger than the game? Did I see that
Good
correctly?
question. No, not
Okay,
yet.
okay.
I mean, that is a
Not
good
yet.
question, though.
All right, I'm getting off track already, but that's kind of what
Yeah. And, by the
Um,
way, this game is so old. One thing, this game is so old that on Board Game Geek, it is number 27. If you ever see like the IDs of names, I think it's number 27. So if you do Board Game Geek /games/27,
Wow.
pretty sure Magic Realm comes up, or it could be 23, but it's definitely in the 20s. So that's how old it is.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That's
That's
great.
insane. I didn't even think about that stat. That's crazy.
yeah.
So my number 5 game here is also one from, I believe, the late 70s. It is a 2-player only abstract game called Cathedral. Now, Cathedral is sort of like a Polyomino game, but with 3D. So it's sort of like Polyomino meets Santorini in sort of a way. It's just for 2 players, like I said, and you have all of these different Tetris-shaped castle building type pieces. And basically, you're just playing these on the board, trying to take up as many spaces as you can. You want to get all of your pieces out if you can, because in this game, the winner has the least amount of points. And so when you're finished with the game, when you can't place anything else, you count the pieces you have remaining, like the structures you have remaining, and how many squares they take up, and that's your score. So you want less of those. But you can also sort of block the other player out of certain areas. You can, sort of capture if you totally engulf another player's structure, you force them to take it off the board. So you're putting points back at them, which is pretty cool. Definitely an older game that I really do not hear almost anything about. Early on when I got into the hobby, this was a game that my wife just saw somewhere. I can't even remember where it was. And she just had this, like, she really just liked the look of this game. And I eventually found it, and it's still in our collection. We played it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Ryan had an interesting comment that it sounds like first edition Blokus, which it's actually a pretty great comparison that I didn't even think of until I saw the comment.
That's true. It just looks so cool, though. It's got a great like toy factor to it also, right? Like, I don't know if I would even get rid of this game even if we didn't play it anymore, because I could totally see my son when he's a little bit older, like using this to play, right? It's like a little battlefield, and you get little soldiers up there and monsters and stuff. So yeah, this one's going to stick around. Nice plastic castle looking pieces.
Is it 2-player?
It's 2-player only. Yeah.
It looks really cool. It kind of I think because right now there's that game Era Medieval Age that just came out by Matt Leacock, and it has that similar thing where you put down the buildings onto the board, but you have your own board. And what's great about that is that that one has no interaction with the other players. This one is all that looks like all interaction with Cathedral.
Yeah.
I love it. Looks like too such great quality to the pieces, which I do think is something that it's interesting. We went, especially on the mainstream or more mainstream games, they used to be really quality at a certain point, and that over time they've lost a lot of that, and it's come back a little bit. It's come back a little bit because some of the hobbies made it into the mainstream, but this is nice to see the nice chunky pieces that they have.
Yeah, I've seen editions of this with wooden pieces as well, which are pretty cool.
So I will tell you guys that mine is one, interestingly enough, for number 5 that I never actually owned, but I played it so much because it was everywhere. So I never owned it myself, but everyone always had so much of this game, plenty of their decks, and decks might start to give it away to what it might be for some of you. But when it comes down to it, it was Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering was everywhere. And Magic the Gathering, for those who don't know, I have Board Game Geek here just to read it to you. And Board Game Geek describes it as the grandfather of collectible card games, where you built decks and you dueled with one another. And honestly, this game is one that, because everyone had, it was lunchtime or something like that, you'd play a game. People had multiple decks. They'd let you play, and you learned how to play the game. I mean, you really learned how to play the game, and I never needed to own it. But it's one of those games that I remember so well. When it comes down to this game, I mean, you were drawing these spells and essentially using the equivalent of resources to get them out there. And again, it was a duel. And that was kind of a fun part about it. There was nothing more fun than kind of just barely taking a victory with just the right spell. And I don't know, for me, it's very memorable. It leads into some of the games I would come to love later on, even thinking about Marvel Champions now. I don't know that Marvel Champions would be where it is on the list for me now, if not for the origins of my card-based games. And Magic the Gathering was the first one. So for me, Magic the Gathering has to be on the mention. But again, I never owned it, which is part of a reason I couldn't put it much higher than I have it.
Yeah.
That was kind of the greatest challenge. I said, I never even owned this. But that, I think that also speaks to its impact.
And I mean, its impact is still going, right? It's still very active.
Oh yeah, like, they still make new decks for this game, new cards. Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to play Magic, you can play Magic, which I think is really cool too. But again, I think that's going to be the only one on my list that's so actively produced. But that one's been around a while, so I'm sure some of you may even still play it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't played it in a long time. I know I was kind of intimidated by kids that played Magic. It's kind of silly. I don't know. I feel like I'm in therapy right now. But
no, it's funny that you say that though, because I was going to say the same thing. Like, I actually, my stint with Magic was really short-lived, and it was the same thing. There was a few kids who went to the library every Friday or whatever and played Magic.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever got comfortable enough that I was able to interact enough to learn the game enough. Like, I wasn't taught how to play the game probably the best way.
Right.
So it was like, okay, just watch and like you'll learn.
I'm not claiming I was good at it, by the way. I'm just saying I played it. and I
Sure.
enjoyed it. Just to be really
I'm
clear,
not saying you're one of those kids. You didn't shoot me down. I don't think you did.
You'll find out what one of those kids it was. By the way, guys, Ryan, who's basically our fourth honorary guest here
Sure.
tonight, does have a comment, and he's telling us now his number 5 is Kill Dr. Lucky. Fantastic game that did not even get on my radar. Probably pulls just on the outside, but a great game. If you've not played Kill Dr. Lucky,
I haven't.
Really,
I've seen
really
it.
great game.
Yeah.
I love this game. My son and wife and I have played this many times over the past 2 years. So
It's like anti-Clue, right?
it's more fun than Clue.
Well, I mean, it's
That
like
is what I
anti.
will
Like
say.
instead of you're trying to figure out who did it, you're all trying to do it.
Yeah, you want to catch them in the act, basically. Is
Oh,
kind of-
okay.
yeah, it's kind of it's really neat.
Got it.
But with that, those are our number 5s. Thank you to Ryan and others for sharing. Again, if you've got games in mind along the way, please continue to share those in the comments. I do see that Brian mentioned Phase 10 from 1982.
Oh yeah.
So that's another great mention. But with that, we'll go on to our number 4, and Ryan,
Okay.
you're up.
So number 4, I also played for the first time last year. This one came out in 1999. It is considered to be either like the second or third ever worker placement game that ever came out, and it is made by 2 designers that are part of Splotter Games. This is Bus, and in Bus, this is the reprint, by the way, and this one is available. But in Bus, the idea is you are trying to get the people on the board to where they need to go via bus routes, and your bus routes are those little lines over there, those little wooden lines, and you're bringing them either from work to the bar, from the bar to home, or from home to work, depending on what time of day it is. And what's really cool about this is that the workers that you get in this game, you have the right to use every worker you have right at the start and just get all your workers out and be done with the entire game. I mean, you're not going to win that way, but there's no stopping you for doing that. And what's really, really interesting is that when you are sending these people to where they want to go, you also can put a worker down to change time. And so instead of having things go from work to bar, you could actually freeze time, so people just are staying in the same exact position. So yeah, it's a really weird but awesome game. Splotter especially, they have such unique board games. I mean, they would go on to do Antiquity and Food Chain Magnate. You know, they're some really, really tough games where I've heard, I think they said it, or at least people have said it about them, where if it's not a Splotter game, if you can't lose on your first turn. And that is definitely true with Bus. It's so unique, and it still holds like a great place in worker placement. It feels so fresh even for like a 10-year-old game, and that is Bus.
That looks fantastic. I want to try that out. It's like that, which is not always the reaction you get. Some games look good, but the description of it, the look of it, like it does not. You know, that one doesn't feel like it's 20 plus years old the way you described it, but here we are.
Yeah, it was so like unique. And yeah, I've said before, Splotter, they do such cool games that any Splotter game is really like an interesting like brain burner. And they're not always like these complicated rules. It's more so like the thought of what exactly to do. There's so much pressure. And what's great about Splotter games too is when you mess up, you know exactly how you messed up, and then there's no coming back from that. But you know exactly how you messed up, and you can save it for next time. And that's Bus.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the expansion where you go from the bar to work.
Oh yeah,
it's called Ugh.
I think that's the Charles Bukowski edition. Sorry.
All right, so speaking of a game that you probably should not be drinking while playing, this is a classic in many people's eyes for my number 4 here. Two of those eyes, however, are not Chris's because I know for a fact that he loathes this game.
Oh.
I know what you're talking about, and I'll have a comment on that. But I'm gonna let you.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Uh-oh.
And we'll see. Maybe Ryan. I might get ganged up on here. I know Ryan might not like it either, but that is Catan, or when it used to be called Settlers of Catan. And this is a really older version of this game. You can see that box. That's my copy. It does not look like that anymore, but I got that used way back in the day. So this one is from 1995. It's been published by, I don't know, I looked on Board Game Geek, like over 40 different publishers. So I just put Mayfair because that's my version that I have, says Mayfair on it, by Klaus Teuber. And this is a game all about rolling dice and collecting resources, and then using those resources to build things like roads and settlements and cities. You can also get to some ocean ports, and you are doing a lot of trading in this game. That was sort of, I think, the hook for this game and why it became so popular and is still popular today. Is this a lot of this back and forth across the table? You know, hey, I'll give you, 2 wool for a wood or whatever. And then this has been in countless TV shows and jokes about this game and whatnot. It's an evergreen for that reason, though. And that's why it's always around and should be in at least someone in their collection. You don't have to have it yourself, but you should have access to it.
I will say this. I don't know if I loathe it. I just don't have any desire to play it anymore, but I have a high respect for it.
Okay.
And I would say that I actually enjoyed some other off versions of Settlers that were not the original version, but they did a few things a little bit different. Really enjoyed those. Some of the history-based ones, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I respect the heck out of this game. We're not talking about Caverna. You want to talk about a game I don't like, talking about Caverna. But I have respect on so many levels for this game. So it's a great choice. I mean, honestly,
thank you.
it would be on. And I think the greatest challenge with this game is who you're playing it with. Because if you've got people who don't have a willingness to ever trade with you, as Eric, by the way, points out that I have some wood for your sheep. If someone won't give you the wood for the sheep, sorry, like sometimes you're screwed. And if you don't got people who will do trading, it could be really not fun. And I think that's where my challenge with the game now comes. I have a game, I'm looking at it, the Island of El Dorado, that has some similarities without being Catan at all. But it's got enough of the similarities that I love it.
I mean, yeah, there's no question about Settlers of Catan that it exploded the industry. It really was the game that kind of brought Euro games to America. And, without any question, like regardless if you like it or dislike it, you can't deny its importance. Honestly, even the same about Monopoly. You can't deny the importance of Monopoly, whether you like it or not. It's so important. It's so integral to our hobby. But with Settlers of Catan, it was, or is it Catan? I don't know, but whatever. I've always said Catan, so I'm gonna say it's Settlers. Catan. Yeah, I've always said Settlers of Catan.
Same.
But it is the game that's still being played. I know it's considered to be like the gateway game. I don't necessarily think of games as gateways. I definitely think there's definitely ones that are easier to bring people to the hobby.
Right.
But I think Catan is that game that I feel like it's considered the gateway because no one's really excited for the theme. They're not excited to be colonizing a fictional island, like, oh yeah, like, I think you'd rather be a white knight, fighting fighting bats, but but again, there's no denying the importance, and I still think it's a solid game. I do agree. I do like some of the Catan iterations. Star Trek Catan I did enjoy, and I do want to try Catan Starfarers. That looks definitely up my alley.
I'd try that Game of Thrones one. I would.
Yeah, I had the Game of Thrones one.
Oh.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but it's also the game too. I remember when my sister was working in Germany. I told her, because she was going to Germany, I was like, "Oh, can you bring me back a board game? Just go and ask for the most popular one." And of course, she went into the toy store and asked for the most popular board game, and she was given German Monopoly. And I'm like, "Okay, don't do that one. Do the next most popular one." And it was Settlers of Catan. So I have that copy still.
Well, look, I will say this: my game, that's not on my list, but it's on my high respect list, and arguably, I still think it probably would fall in if I had to do a top 10 on this kind of topic. I probably would throw it in there,
Yeah.
just because I respect it. It would get a spot just for that. For me, however, mine is one, and my list gets a lot more exciting after this, I feel like, but honestly, this one had to be on my list because I have such a memory of this game, and I don't think this game needs a lot of explaining. It is Scrabble. This game is so important. It drove so many games that exist now. This idea of spelling out words, and then you would later have upwords or bananagrams and 20 million other things. But the Scrabble, which came out in 1948 by Alfred Mosher Butts, which, by the way, he came out of Poughkeepsie. I was reading up on him. He was living in Poughkeepsie at the time, which was interesting because I'm from generally that area. But when it came to Scrabble, I remember for me the idea of you've got letters with points on them, and you can get double word score, triple word scores, just simple triple letter scores. Simple. The idea you could play this with anyone. It was simple, right? But it was enjoyable. You were learning, and honestly, for me, I remember fifth grade, and in fifth grade we had on Fridays championship like style matches, and in the end there was a championship match for whoever did the best. So I think I have such a memory of this game because I made it to the championship game, and I remember I lost on a word that I later was found not in the Scrabble dictionary. So I declared myself a champion by default because I got screwed. But I'm a much better loser now, I promise. But yeah, Scrabble has to be on the list for me. It's really important, and I think it's just an important game as a whole that came out in that time. And a lot of games that exist now, I think, took some small little pieces from Scrabble that are pretty important. I will say, for me, I had to have it on the list.
Yeah.
What was the word that you lost on? Do you remember?
I don't remember the word I lost on, but they did challenge me on the word QAT, which is in the Scrabble dictionary and way overused now, like way overused. But at the time, like when I was a fifth grader, that was a big deal that I had this power word I can pull out of nowhere on someone, I remember.
Yeah.
I will point out, by the way, because we have our fourth list here that is official, and Ryan's got Can't Stop from 1980. This is a good one. Push Your Luck. Super crazy game. I agree. That's a good description.
I love Can't Stop.
Yeah, the great game. Really good choice there, Ryan. Who you're now gonna drop number 3, number 2, and number 1, by the way, because now you're on this show, so you're not going anywhere. Just letting you know, I'm not allowing it. But we do have a number 3.
Yeah,
and we're gonna go back to Ryan for that one.
Yeah, my number 3 is from the 80s. It is awesome. It is a game that is great with tea and to play with one other person, and that is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. So Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective came out in the early 80s, and this is a reprint, and I think even that one is called The Thames Murders now, it's called, in other cases, but the base game is so solid. It is a murder mystery kind of, well, not really murder mystery. It's story driven. You're looking to try to discover these cases, but it comes with that map. It comes of the city, which is kind of useless. And it comes with those newspapers, which are actually really important. So it's like these newspapers you open up and you're like looking through and like, oh my gosh, like where, like, you know, what clue can I find? It is a really, really cool thing. If you're playing this, it tells you want to try to beat Sherlock Holmes' score. It is impossible to beat Sherlock Holmes' score. He's just completely unfair. And everyone seems to agree with that online. But it's got a couple of new editions. I know a new edition came out last year that is more of a modern twist, because the other ones were kind of reprints of ones from the 80s. And they have like a Jack the Ripper one. They have all sorts of Sherlock Holmes mysteries. I used to play this a lot with a coworker of mine, and during lunch, we would actually go into a conference room, pull up Google Drive, and just go through the mystery and kind of just write things out. And we would just come back to this day in, day out. You could stop, you can come back to it. I remember we were even walking to the train, talking about the case, and then we realized we solved it, and went back to the office to go figure it out. It was so cool. It's such a solid game. And it's great, especially now for playing with like a spouse or someone. It's such a great 2-player game. I mean, you can play with more than 2 players, but don't play with more than 2 players.
Thematically, just the idea of being a detective and trying to, I don't know, there's something fun to that.
Yeah.
I know Portal Games does a lot with this now. And a few others have some games out there. Portal Games in particular stands out because they focus very much on telling stories. I mean, that is their motto, really. So, but this one always looked interesting, and I'd like to play it. But I'm glad it's on your list because now, and you holding it up, now I know you own it.
I'm almost done with it. And so once you're done with it, I'd say there's 10 cases in here. So there's like a book that you just go through and you kind of like read different passages, like you open the door and they've been expecting you, Mr. Lestrade said. And
it just seems memorable. Again, you're describing another game that, like earlier, just seems memorable. Like you're going to remember what happened. And I don't know, that's to me what's special about gaming and the fact that you can have these stories to tell about the adventure you went on, in your house.
I cannot play this ever again because I know exactly what happens in these mysteries. It's great. Everyone should try it at least once, or a game of that ilk, like Detective was that one from Portal. But yeah, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Awesome.
Number 3.
All right. Well, you want to talk memorable?
Mm-hmm.
Try beheading someone.
Ooh.
This is a very, very wholesome game here. My next pick, number 3, all about executing nobles, and it's a game from 1998 called Guillotine or Guillotine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it. To be honest, I always say Guillotine. This was another early pickup in my board game hobby interest thing and got a lot of plays really early on. This is basically a game where you just line up a group of cards. These are all these nobles that are in line for each day to get executed. This thing goes on for 3 days, 3 days worth of executions. It's fantastic. So you line everybody up. Everyone's got a point value. And on your turn, you either play a card that's an action or you don't play a card. But either way, you always get to chop off somebody's head. So there's that. You're trying to collect as many points as you can. And all those action cards that you play are really ways to usually manipulate the line. So, for example, if there's some characters that are negative points, you don't want to execute them. Like there's like an innocent victim and whatnot. So you might play a card that moves that victim back 2 spots and leaves you with this nice score 5 card that you're not going to behead, the Archbishop, because he's worth a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the big hat and everything. So this game is really simple. The cards let you mess with each other. It is definitely some take that. So, know that going in. I mean, it's about chopping heads off. So there's a little bit of take that for sure. But yeah, it's a fun one. Pretty simple concept. I think there are a couple of other games that I haven't played that do have a similar mechanism in this lining things up, but they're less violent than this one.
Yeah, it's a great one. I remember playing that. And what a great filler. That's a really fun one. Yeah. And it's always fun to try to give the boy that holds the bucket of stuff to to another player.
What is that card called?
I want to say a nice
I like when a filler can entertain you in that way. I mean, that's really what it should do, because it sometimes you just need that. Though I imagine that a lot of these at the time wouldn't have been considered filler; they just would have been the game. So as we talk about now, we say filler, but let's be real. Some people are going to just play one of these games, and obviously that will definitely catch attention at the table. With the
oh yeah. I still want to upgrade my my cardboard thing that came with it and get like a real mini little guillotine thing.
Yeah.
If anybody knows where to get one of those, hit me up in the comments.
Well, I will tell you, mine is one that people are going to know. This is the other one that's the older, well-known one, though I do not like the quality of the way it's printed now and made now. I actually have the original from a game copy of this from 1960, I believe. It came out in 1946. That's Stratego. This is actually a photo of my board. I have it's just better, the quality. But Stratego, what I love about it is one, I'm not always the biggest war person, the war games, but I love the idea that I have to pick strategically how I'm going to move my characters. Then they've got numbers assigned because certain numbers are going to take out another type of character. So, a 1 might be more powerful, but the 8 can take out a bomb. And that's huge because there's going to be landmines on that field that I got to defuse. So you start to figure that out. So who are you going to send forward to try and figure it out, to be that scout? When are you going to send your lower number pieces forward? And the idea of getting the flag, it's capture the flag in board game. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. And it's so simple, yet so enjoyable. This has come out multiple times with a board game club that I ran in town to in my house. I bought a copy of it only to realize that the original was still at my dad's and my dad gave it to me. So now the other copy is pointless because I will play with the original over and over again. Because I also don't have to put stickers on it myself, which is ridiculous, but beyond, that's not the point. Great game. And again, it's a classic for a reason. And I'd argue it won't be on the top 5 for a lot of people. But even if it's on your top 5, I think this game is still worth playing, once or twice a year. I just think it's a great game, and it's fun to teach people too, and pretty easy to teach.
Yeah, I've yet to try. I know it's one of those games that everyone's played. I've never played it.
I don't know if I have either, to be honest. Like, if I did, it wasn't memorable enough. I know I didn't own it for sure.
It's quite the burn. Yes.
I don't know if I played this either.
Well, I can solve that. In fact, we can make that happen live when one day we can make that live, and I'll just moderate and commentary or something, which can be amusing. But it's a good one. I mean, check it out. I have an extra copy, like I said, so you guys can borrow one of that one. I don't need it. But yeah, that's my number 3. And since we recruited Ryan to start doing this officially, I'm going to bring Ryan's up. Ryan says El Grande, card-driven area control. And as soon as the game starts, everyone is an enemy, and the conflict gets very intimidating, but very fun. That's a good choice.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now. I know of El Grande. I have not played it. I think it would be very easily one of my favorite in this category had I played it based on what I've read about it.
Okay.
But having not played it, I cannot say that.
All right. I'm completely lying. I know all about this because El Grande is my number 2. Let's just go right to it. Let's go right to it. El Grande is my number 2. Here's El Grande. Good segue. El Grande is number 2.
Was that a setup? No.
Yeah, it wasn't a setup, but I'll definitely spike that ball. All right. El Grande. Holy smokes, El Grande. What a game. El Grande is the area control game, okay? I've played a lot of area control games. This is the area control game. You want to play with a 5. That's definitely, it's fine with 4. You don't want to play with less than 4, but you want to play with 5. Everyone's in their face. You're trying to take over different areas. You're trying to get the most points in those areas by having dominance in the area. It is the area control. But the best thing about it, it's area control without direct combat. It's none of this risk thing where you're rolling dice. There's no cards, you're not fighting each other and taking over the territory. You are just in it, and it is so mean. I love it. I absolutely love El Grande. There's a whole auctioning system where you're
love El Grande is my question.
Yes, I love El Grande. And I'm gushing about this. Wait till number 1. But holy man, like El Grande is so cool. So not only is it dominant there, but before you start, you have to play a card to determine player order. When you're playing your cards for player order, the higher value card you get, the less powerful it's actually going to be for bringing people that you can actually put on the board, because you're taking people from the supply to go into your own personal supply. There's a communal supply, your own personal supply, and then the board. And the higher number you play, the less people you actually take. It is so cool. And then you just bring people out and you really mess things up. And, there's certain points where you could change the scoring of the different spots to make them completely worthless or worth the most points. And then there's a whole thing where you're bidding on one of the spots, you don't know what's in there. So you put as many people as you can without actually letting people kind of remember what was in there. So, and then you get to move all those people onto somewhere else on the board. It's so cool. El Grande is such a fun game. And I can't wait because Board Game Arena is going to be having it at some point. It's in alpha as a couple months ago, and I really can't wait it's on Board Game Arena because I'm going to be playing that like every day because it's so good. Yeah, El Grande, my number 2.
We'll consider when it gets on there. Let's play because I want to check this out. Especially after how glowingly you spoke about it.
Yeah, and honestly, like you could teach it in like 5 to 10 minutes. It's so quick, and it came out the same year as Catan. You know, like that. Like keep that. Like it's just like it's such a solid design, man. I want to play right now.
Have you played El Grande, Anthony?
I have not.
Oh, you should.
I think I might have to now.
You have to.
It doesn't seem like I have much of a choice.
You know, no, that's it.
All right, well, getting into last couple picks here, right? So we're on number 2s. Is that correct? Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
My number 2 is another 2-player only game, and this one just ekes in 1999, and that is a game called Lost Cities from Cosmos by the good Dr. Rainer Knizia. This is really just a card game. It does have a board out in front there, but that's just to have a place to put discarded cards, basically. Those are all different colored expeditions that you're trying to go on in this game. And you're trying to play cards on your side of that board in numerical order, ascending order. But the trick is that as soon as you sort of commit one card to any of those expeditions, you are going on that expedition, meaning you already start with negative 20 points in that area because you got to sort of front the money for this expedition, so to speak. So when you're playing those cards, you better make sure you get at least above 20 points. Otherwise, you're going to have negative points. There's also ways to multiply the cards with these like handshake symbols, which can bite you because if you do have negative points, they make that an even bigger loss, which is crazy. But basically, the way you find out your score is you add up all the numbers that you played on each side. And as a 2-player game, it really has a great back and forth. It's very stressful. You have a hand limit, and you want to play to all 5 of these different expeditions, these colors, but you simply can't. So there are many times where you're looking at your cards and you're like, I don't want to get rid of anything. And I definitely don't want to get rid of that because I know you want it. And man, I need one more card here. It's bizarre. What's interesting about this game is it ends when the draw pile runs out, but you never draw from the draw pile in this game. That's not one of the actions you can take. When you discard onto the center of the board if you don't want that card, or you play them in your little number value section. That being said, you can prolong the end of the game a little bit by not having to refill those. So you can sort of kind of hang on, and sometimes you both look at each other and you're like, oh, we could both probably use a couple more turns here, right? Maybe we should not touch the draw pile at all. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, comes down to a lot of stress, and I think you usually play best 2 out of 3 in this game, which is, always fun because that means you could always just play one time if you want for a quicker game.
And now Juan chiming in, love this game in my top 10, played it at work with my friend last week. So
yeah.
Great choice. You're clearly resonating right now.
Nice. That's what they call me, the resonator.
I think I saw that.
I will say, Anthony, I have the, I think it's 2009, the board game version of this.
Okay.
And so I considered this for the list, but I just couldn't do it because technically it is a different game, right? And I maybe played it once, maybe. So for me, I would have loved to have been able to put this on it, but unfortunately I have one that's post 2000, so not an option for me. But
great choice, though. Yeah.
I love this. I do love this game, and again, it's a great pick.
Thank you, Professor Wren.
Yeah, there we go, Professor Wren. We appreciate you, Professor Wren. By the way, thank you again for joining the video. I will say for mine, I can speak with the glee that Ryan was kind of talking about. This pick. I didn't even think about this game until this video, and then suddenly these memories came coming back to me. Mine is a game about combat once again, but in this case, you are 2 castles, and you are trying to knock out the opponent's people. And the farther you move your people down, the closer you can move your weapons to attack. And that is Weapons and Warriors. It's uncredited. If someone could help me solve that, because I swear it should be credited and I could not find it for the life of me. Milton Bradley, 1993. This game is so much fun. It takes up this space because you've got this long kind of board, so to speak, and you're trying to move your people down because you got to get closer. So eventually you can bring out the cannons, right? And you can get closer with the cannons and fire to knock down these castles, but you got to knock down all the people. And that's the thing about this game. You've got people that you're trying to knock over to win the game. And the biggest concern I had with this game as a kid was losing the little tiny balls that you're shooting to knock the things over. There was always like a scramble. Do we have them all in the box? That was the biggest problem with the game. If there was a problem, so much fun though. And you could see, again, catapults, cannon. I mean, there was the time you had when you played this game, you would set it up. It didn't take that long to set up. But you will also notice on this one that someone has quite an advanced castle compared to kind of a mediocre setup. So you also kind of have a David versus Goliath thing kind of going on, which I always thought added to the fun of it. I know they added other things to this, but this was the one that I played and I loved it so much. And I just love the box. I do want to say a game of battle action, the game of battle action. And it really was. When you could bring the cannon out though, that was the fun part. You got close to
This looks like a lot of fun. This looks like a game that would get set up and just not get played by the rules and just be like shooting at each other.
Oh yeah.
You didn't. I won't say that never happened. It definitely happened sometime, but I just remember it. Again, it was a game that you would play it and be like, "Want to play one more time?" And like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So that's my number 2. Fantastic game. If I could have my old copy of this and it just was not sold in the yard sale, I would take it out right now.
I know the castle too, right? It doesn't like parts of it are like designed to explode, like they have like rubber bands. So yeah.
So the castle's falling apart. That's why you want the cannon, because the cannon can start knocking it out,
right?
Make it easier. But when you're on the other side, when you're essentially the David versus Goliath, you're very much in the open. You've got this tiny little thing to protect you, but that's really it. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and definitely enjoyed a bit. I know there was
I know there was a Kickstarter recently for a game that is like a similar ilk, where it had like that same kind of thing. But isn't it so crazy that there used to be a time where you can go into a toy store and get a game like this? Like,
I know,
like it just because it's a big box. Weapons of Warriors is a big box.
I think I put a call out when we started this list too to say, if anyone sees this game for a reasonable price, let me know. Like I will buy it. I will share Ryan's number 2, our unofficial number 4, which is our unofficial number 4 is number 2. Number 2, we got Cribbage. Cribbage, yes, pure sentimental value. But this is where I admit that I've never played it and I get yelled at by people all the time. But I need to play Cribbage sometime because I hear people talk about Cribbage matches all day long.
It's solid.
Loved it.
It's a good one. I've definitely played it before, and it's really fun with the whole board and stuff.
Yeah, there's people make some very articulated or intricate, rather, like wooden score boards for cribbage and all kinds of different shapes and things like that. It has a big following for sure.
Yeah, I will say this. Eric Daly did ask if there's a battering ram in that game in which I was speaking to, and I think there may have been. I'm not sure if it was in the base or if it had some kind of like additional ones. I can't remember that. I just remember the cannon more than anything, because you'd use the cannon to make walls explode.
I would want the wooden rabbit from Monty Python, just roll that in.
That'd be great. That. Well, look, speaking of great, I know you're excited for your number 1.
Yes,
so let's give you a chance to reveal that one.
Okay, sure. So like I said, El Grande has replaced like a lot of area control games. Now, here's the thing. When I first got into the hobby, I really disliked dexterity games. And I think it's because I played like one that I just didn't gel with me. So I was very skeptical about playing dexterity games. And I saw a video on Shut Up and Sit Down that sold me on one of their dexterity games. And as soon as I said that, you probably already know exactly what it is. So let me just roll it out.
Literally.
Literally roll it out. This giant circle. This is Crokinole. If you want to take a look, yeah. Crokinole is my number one game that happened before 2000. And so, first of all, I'm really excited that we're doing this list because when you guys were doing your best 2-player games, I was screaming. No, I was screaming, but I was like, internet screaming. Why aren't you playing Crokinole? So Crokinole is such a solid 2-player game. All you're doing, so you're flicking these discs and trying to get the most points by having your discs stay on there. And the winner gets the difference in points. And you play until 100 points. And when you're flicking your discs, if no opponent's discs are on the board, you need to get into that little inner circle. But if an opponent's disc is on the board, your disc needs to make contact with one of their discs to remain on the board. Otherwise, it's off. You have 12 shots, and you're doing this. We got, after that video, I bought this board, the Mayday board, and we started playing Crokinole at my job, and we played tons of Crokinole for lunch breaks. It was just Crokinole upon Crokinole upon Crokinole, and then we went to PAX Unplugged that year, and they were doing a Crokinole tournament, and we signed up, and I was so intimidated because we're like, oh yeah, it's hosted by the Philadelphia Crokinole team, and I'm like, oh my gosh. What am I getting myself into? But we actually did pretty good. We made it into the semifinals, like the first pass. We made it out. We made it out of our first pass. So we were really excited. And the boards there were by Crokinole Game Boards, who posted that image over there. And they make like the tournament boards, and these boards are like insane. It's so fun, this game, and it's 5 minutes and then you're done, and then you're just going to be playing it again. Crokinole is such a solid game, and it's definitely like in my top 10. Like, this is like a really, really exciting, just sit down and just start flicking discs back and forth. It's so good. I really am excited that I convinced my wife that we're going to get a nicer Crokinole board for the house. So yay, I'm really excited about that.
I will say this. I think I could predict if we ever do a top 10.
Yeah.
And I'm always I like talking about the favorites because you can cover a lot of ground and cover a lot of variety. But if ever was a top 10, I think I could pick at least 3 of yours.
Yeah, definitely.
At least 3.
Definitely.
Right off the top of my head. And one of them is, I knew this would be one of them, probably in your top 5.
Yeah. So my board games are actually in order of like favorites. So spoilers in my shelf. But you can't really put Crokinole up there on top, because if so, it'd be like in the middle, like this giant board in the middle.
So where did you keep the Crokinole board at work?
So we at our office we had like a back room, and we would just be playing in like it was a whole floor, and one of the rooms was the playroom, because we do web development, so it's very like Silicon Valley-esque, but still like we're not Google, but at least. But we had like a room where we had like a ping pong table. So we got the Crokinole board and we put it on top of this circular table, and we would just be playing for lunch. And after work, we would just stay for like an hour or two, just be playing Crokinole, just back and forth. I played a lot with my coworker. He'll say that he's better. He's probably right, but I'm gonna say I'm better. So there, because he's probably watching. So there's that. But yeah, Crokinole, everyone should play. It's such a good game.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things about this, and never had the opportunity to play it, to be honest.
Same thing.
All right, so my number 1 here is definitely the game that I would play, first out of asking me to play these 5 that I listed. It is really, really fun, but boy, is it mean. I believe it's from 1982, and that is Survive: Escape from Atlantis. This game is all about getting your meeples off of this island to safety, and every turn you're going to be picking up a piece of that island made of those hex tiles, and so this island is just going to start to disappear and disappear and disappear. You're trying to get your little tokens, your little meeple guys, on these boats, and then one of the actions you can take is to, I should say you have X amount of actions you can take each turn. You can move your boats, you can move your people off the different spaces of the island, but you can get into a boat with other players, and then either one of you can control the boat. all the while you're trying to navigate the treacherous sea, which has sharks, sea monsters, giant squids, and whales, and even some dolphins to help you out if you do have some sharks around you. This game is just so fun. You get to make sound effects, you get to knock people's boats over, and yeah, it's kind of mean, and there's definitely going to be some hurt feelings in this game, but it's totally worth it because you get to do it back to the person later, and it's just so much fun. What's also cool is that all of the meeples have a different point value underneath them, and at the beginning of the game, you take turns setting them all out on the different hexes of the island, and sure, you can try to remember who's where, but honestly, a few turns into the game, you forgot where you put your highest point player versus your lowest point one. And even when you finally score them and get them to one of the corners to safety, you don't reveal them until the end of the game. So I feel like you can always sort of still be in this game if you get at least one or two of your pieces to one of the islands. A lot of fun. Definitely some back and forth, some take that for sure, but really cool looking meeples and all that stuff. So it's totally fun. Great to have this one on the table.
Eric, by the way, chiming in here, played this with my parents once. My wife just destroyed a boat with 3 of my mother's meeples. She hasn't been forgiven.
Wow.
That's great.
So yeah, that's the kind of impact this game can have. So be careful who you play with.
I definitely want to try it. That seems up my alley.
Well, people say Monopoly destroyed lives. This sounds like this would be even more destructive. And look, credit where it's due as we're talking about some of these things. I want to just point out obviously we are all talking about games we've played. So when it comes down to it, there's a bunch I haven't played that I'm sure would have been considered. And this is definitely one that sounds awesome and I now want to play. So I hope you're discovering some games yourself. If there's games you've played, of course, that you think just are great games in this category, feel free to drop them at the end of the video. And share them with the audience. We'd love to kind of share those and give people some more ideas of what they could play. I will say this because we mentioned early on in the game before I say my number one. I do go back to something you said earlier. I think it was Ryan. I give Monopoly a ton of credit. Monopoly was my first board game. It was the game I played a lot. I remember always wanting to make sure I got Boardwalk and St. Charles Place, not Park Place. I wanted St. Charles Place because St. Charles Place is the most landed on spot in the game from the research I had done. But that's not the point. I did research on Monopoly at one point in my life.
Yeah, about to say.
Yeah, I have a book. No, it goes with that there's a book about Monopoly that my grandfather bought for me 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it tells you there is strategy, believe it or not, for most landed on. But the point is, we give credit to a lot of these games. So if a game's not mentioned, I'd love for people to share it. The game I'm going to share, however, is one that has meant a lot to me. And earlier I mentioned Magic. I did not own Magic, but I played it. I owned this one, and I remember collecting these cards. And I loved the IP behind this game. And this was around the same time. And I'm sorry, I never meant offense to Magic, but I just couldn't go to buy Magic because I didn't have an investment in that world. Mm-hmm. But I did have an investment in Star Wars. And Star Wars, the customizable card game, it really, when you break it down, not all that different from that world of Magic. You are the customizable card game based on the Star Wars universe, and they had all the packs come out around all the different movies and things like that. I will say the joy that I got from, I remember opening a rare Yoda once, which I still have somewhere at my parents' house. I just remember that excitement. And it wasn't even about, I think the thing about these games, in particular with Star Wars, because you knew the IP, was you were excited about the character, but then you were so excited to play it. One of the first games I ever sleeved in my entire life either. So you want to go back to, this is probably the first thing I ever sleeved. It did come with this great introductory 2-player box that you see in the photo to the left, straight off Board Game Geek there. But it was a fun game, playing the good guys or the bad guys. You chose a side, and you had a blast, and you felt like you were in the Rebellion. And this is before a game called Rebellion would come out, obviously, which is not a card game, but is the best, in my opinion, probably Star Wars game if I want the Star Wars thematic experience. I'm not saying it's the best Star Wars game, but thematically. So this brought that experience long before that was a game. And so for me, this is my number one. Just a special game. And again, Magic was dominating at this time. So for me, Magic might have been dominating, but I loved the underdog. And in this case, this game was an underdog, but it had enough players. I mean, it did not have the staying power of Magic, but it was a special game. I will say that. I really loved it. And I don't know, for anyone who's had a game where you open up a pack and you don't know what you're going to get, there was some excitement when you got that really special rare card. And it was pretty neat experience as a kid. So for me, that's what I think brings it to number one.
Do you still have it?
Unfortunately, I don't have all the cards. I have some of them, but I don't have anything. A lot of this brought back memories of these things because I went through a lull personally as a gamer where I wasn't doing as much for many years there. I was doing other things. I joke about it, but we all go through that period in our life sometimes where we're trying to figure out who we are. And I think I forgot who I was for a little bit. So I forgot about games for a few years there. So in that sad period, I lost many of these games, which is the worst part. So those may be around somewhere, but I don't have them all. I'm pretty sure I still have the Yoda card though.
Oh, good.
And I would not get rid of it, but that's sad. Great game. I do have Ryan's choice here, by the way, because Ryan's been playing along with us. Thank you for that, Ryan, by the way. It's been a wonderful addition here. Hero Quest 1989. The best thing about Hero Quest is video. The answer is everything. This was amazing to play the entire thing via Discord. All they need is a hero, sheet, and dice. So that's a pretty neat piece to that. Anything we've talked a lot on this channel, in particular, Anthony and I, about games we can play over Zoom or Discord or something like that. And so anything like that is great. Professor Ren, by the way, chiming in and saying nobody loves Overpower. I have not played Overpower.
I haven't played Overpower either.
I have. Overpower was a lot of fun. Definitely played that way more than Magic for sure. Back in the day, I probably would have made my top 10.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you, of course, to both of you for joining in this. This has been a really fun conversation. If anyone else has any recommendations before we end the stream, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Appreciate you taking the time to join. Again, this theme has been games published before 2000, and I want to give a note to Carcassonne, which is from 2000, because if Carcassonne was Carcassonne would have been very in my list immediately, but it was a 2000, and I was like, wait a minute, I think it just misses, and I was like, yep, just misses. So Carcassonne 2000, a lot of great games in 2000. Go look at those. And then again, I will just end with this too. Aside from thanking both Anthony and Ryan, I'm going to take a moment to also say, if you've got a topic you'd love to see us cover, let me know. We love those oddball ones, those ones that are a little bit unique. Give us a challenge. Let's have some fun. We can't promise we played every one of them, but we can definitely have some fun with those. We do have someone chiming in here with Advanced Squad Leader.
Hang on, I'll get that. I got that. Hang on.
This is the best part.
So I was learning this. I still need to sit down with John, who posted that. I still need to sit down. We started trying this together, and this is he's huge in the ASL. He goes to tournaments and stuff. And yeah, ASL is like, if you want like a World War II board game that is like World War II, like this is like really like, it's got like every battle you could think of in World War II, every faction, every army and every sort of thing. I'm excited to finally sit down. That's part of my goal of this year. It was part of it last year, but it really tapered off just because everything.
And then, because we didn't technically give Ryan the honorable mention earlier. He said no Tigers Team for Euphrates, but it may be up there if I played it. So
yeah, I feel the same
good
way.
Reference. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't play Tigers Team Euphrates. I played Through the Desert, which I know came out in '97, and that almost made my list. That's such a solid design as well too.
I want to thank the note too on the Kill Dr. Lucky, because that one really just didn't make the list, but it is a great game. So check it out. Especially if you're bored of Clue, check out Kill Dr. Lucky. And in the modern times, you can check out, it's at Target, there's a game called Suspicion, which it's a simple game where you have to actually see the people and try to guess who everybody's actually is. But some different games out there. But look, I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Of course, thank you for adding in on the audience side. We really appreciate you being here live with us. My name, as I said, is Chris Barrows, and this is the Tabletop Express. If you have a chance, go ahead, like and subscribe to the Tabletop Express. As Anthony and I are joking, we are on a mission to 100 subs because we want to be able to brand our URLs properly and all that jazz. So that'd be great, but I appreciate you taking time to tune in more than anything else. Anthony, anything that you're up to that you want to share?
I'm always up to something. We got do a lot of board game holiday spotlights. So check out our past Valentine's Day episode, and then in a couple of weeks we'll have a seasonal spotlight on spring and a couple other holidays coming up as well. So that's at Board Game Dads, my YouTube channel. So stop by there as well.
And Ryan, I know we have something in the wings. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what we've got planned with Marvel?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Marvel Champions. Everything Marvel Champions. We'll be going over decks, we'll be going over characters, we'll be going over combos, things that we like. I can't get enough of Marvel Champions. Very excited to talk about that.
Yeah, so tune in. Marvel Mondays will be coming to the channel very soon as we work out the date, and then we can clarify when, and you can put it on the schedule to make sure you tune in for every one of them. And excited to talk about some of those new packs that have come out recently. So with all that said, guys, I want to thank you both for being here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and welcome aboard the Tabletop Express.